guys, Lindsay here with Storybook Family Farm. Today's kind of a big day for me. It's a little bit heartbreaking, but it's also kind of exciting. So today I'm actually going to work on removing the rest of the garden fencing behind me here. For the next several weeks. This is going to be the last day that the ground is somewhat workable. It's almost frozen now, so it's just kind of like the top little layer that's that the ground is frozen on. So I should still be able to pull out the remaining T-posts that are there. For the last several days, I've actually been doing the very boring and kind of sad and monotonous task of removing fencing, pulling T-posts, changing things around and shifting things around for our homestead to sort of sort of move forward. With the whole septic situation going on, it does have so many things up in the air, but we know one thing is certain. I have to get the fencing out, I have to move the rabbits, and I have to move every single living thing that could possibly be harmed in the process of them tearing up virtually our entire yard to put a septic in, which has been a huge doozy, especially because it's not been ideal weather. As you guys can see around me, it is actively snowing right now. The last week or so, it pretty much rained on and off the entire week. So a couple days ago, I was actually outside in the rain the entire day with like rain gear on and all that jazz to work on making it so that way instead of our ducks and geese having a little pasture that they, only get contained in every now and again, because of having to have the septic replaced, we know that we're going to have to contain them for several days on end without letting them free range over the entire property. We have too many birds right now for it to have been a decent accommodating living situation for them to stay in their small pasture area for any length of time. So since we moved Wilbur and Ferdy, which are our male goats, we moved them up on the hillside several months ago. Actually, I don't even know how long ago that was. I'm terrible at keeping track of time because I just go from one project to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. So I don't know timeline-wise. But anyways, so we weren't sure what we were going to do with Wilbur and Ferdy's old area. We had mentally, before the whole septic situation, we had planned on that becoming additional growing space, gardening space. So that way we could grow some feed crops for all of our animals, like more pumpkins for the goats, doing some things like some sorghum like we've done in the past, because the chickens really like the sorghum. We don't have to grind it for them. The goats like the whole plant. Like, we had this whole big plotted out plan that we had already come up with earlier on in the month. And then with finding out the whole septic situation is getting screwy and everything's getting moved and chopped up, it really has put us on a bit of a tailspin of trying to figure out, like, where do we go from here? What is even possible for us to do on this land? Because, to be honest, where our garden was at, it wasn't even that great of a spot, but it was the only spot that got enough sunlight and it was somewhat dry enough that we could actually use it. Last year during the drought, we barely had to water anything that's on this side of the garden, which is the side that is away from where the septic is going to go, just because it was so wet. Most of the year we can't walk around over here without it being like turning into a giant mud pit because of how wet it is, which is obviously not ideal for a new garden. So it's been a bit of a struggle to try to mentally figure out how to adapt and overcome. Our whole homesteading journey has pretty much been one of resilience and adapting and overcoming and making the most out of a terrible situation. And when this is going on year 6 of homesteading in a situation like that, where it's just mountain to climb after mountain to climb, after hurdle to jump over, after obstacle, after slam door shit in your face, it gets to be a little bit hard. And that's why at first I was pretty ticked off about where the garden had to be moved from, because logically there is virtually no other spot to put it on this property, due to where the sun tracks at, how the hillside is, how virtually half of our property is covered in springs that then leaks out onto the rest of the open area. It makes things incredibly difficult to try to figure out what to do. And then giving the fact of how long this journey has been and how stressful it's been, it kind of was like the straw that broke the camel's back, to be quite honest. But so this past week, as I've been working on rolling with the punches, is the best that I can say, or making lemonade with the lemons that I've been given, it's kind of changed my perspective on things quite a lot. As you guys know, for a long while, I've been talking about not liking where we lived at. And I've been actually seeking a lot of guidance on what to do next. I've been asking other people. I've been asking the divine. I've been asking for signs and for guidance. and things. And every time that I do that, it's like things just get more complicated and more complex here and stuff. And then with the whole septic thing just right in front of us, it's kind of like the writing is on the wall in my eyes, to basically seeing that the chapter of here is closing. So that's why moving forward, I'm not planning on actually building a new garden. I am planning on doing it all in containers that can eventually be moved with us, because the amount of energy that it takes to start a new garden, and mind you, this is the third new garden that I've started. After this garden is closed up later on today, I will then be required to start a fourth new garden, not all in the same location. The amount of energy that it takes to start a garden, to do it in a regenerative way, to not buy a bunch of inputs, buy a bunch of soil, and doing all this stuff, and doing it the right way, the way that I feel called to do, a very purist way of just slowly and steadily improving the soil with, mulches and manures and, different carcasses of the animals that we've butchered and just different organic materials that I have. It takes several years to develop good soil. So that is why feels like almost like a really big kick in the teeth, because of how much work has gone into this already, and then knowing that I'm going to have to do it all over again, and then knowing that because my heart lies somewhere else, that I'm going to then have to do this all over again. It's one of those things where I'm just like, you know what, damn it, I don't want to do it anymore. So that's why moving forward, what I'm going to be doing is actually just basically sourcing as many buckets in the other containers. Like, this is going to be the most redneck looking garden ever, because I need it to be movable. Because I don't want to go through this again where, everything is going good, everything is growing good. I mean, we have fall garden crops in that I'm literally going to let the ducks and geese kill, because I can't move them. I can't do anything with them. And it's just, so many different things are up in the air for us right now. I mean, I think intuitively that's why when I've built new structures and I've built new housing for the animals, I've built it all not on a foundation. Like the duck and goose enclosure is on a trailer. Wilbur and Ferdy's area, their new hut, it is lightweight enough that I can just remove some of the boards and I can physically move it myself. Granted, it's not an easy task, that's for sure, but it is small enough that it can be put on a trailer to then be moved to a future location. Everything has been that I've done previously and stuff for our animals has been very much with an eye towards the future of not knowing what was going to happen, not knowing what was going to be taking place. So I basically made it all portable, because, well, when you've moved a farm 3 times in 5 years time, you kind of get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm tired of moving this, I'm tired of picking everything back up, I'm tired of starting over again. So that's basically what I'm going to be doing this year with the garden space. I don't know where I'm going to put it, because honestly, right over in here, which I'll move the camera so you guys can see, right over in here where it is somewhat open, it is so wet year round that it honestly would be kind of like walking on a slip and slide to try to do anything with it when it is not frozen out or not in a drought season. So it's been rough. And then add on top of all that, which they just started up again, for the last 4 weeks, we've been surrounded by chainsaws going on and off all day long. So it's been rough. It's kind of been like a big pushing on us to accelerate and to basically test our resolve. I feel, honestly, that's how I feel, that it's like a test your resolve, see how much further you can go, how much are you willing to suffer through, I suppose. And to be quite honest, I'm really not in the suffering mood anymore. I'm not. This year is not a year of suffering for me. I will not allow it to be, which I know could sound very bold and brazen to try to say something like that I might have just, jinxed it. But for any of you that have been around for our journey, or that know our journey on a more personal level, you understand just how many hurdles we've gotten through and climbed through and overcame just to get to the moment that we're at right now. And it just, I don't know how to describe it, how to describe the inner knowing of that our period of extreme struggle and poverty and difficulty and hardship is over. It's kind of like how when you know you're towards the end of a book and you kind of feel that you're like, oh God, I only got one chapter left. I only got one chapter left to read. And, I don't want this to end. I don't want this to end. It's kind of like that intuitive prompting where you're like, do I stop reading now? Do I slow down because I know it's about to end? Or do I just power through and then, you know, rejoice when it's over? It's kind of one of those things. But I've got to cut this off here. I'd love to chat with you guys more. I'd love to tell you guys about where I'm going to move the rabbits and how things are going to be so great and how next year is going to be so much better. Next growing season. I know we're technically in the next year. As a gardener, for me, the next year really actually starts in the springtime, not wintertime. But yeah, it's weird. It's a weird feeling. Right now, I'm just basically following my heart, flying by the seat of my pants, and just walking blindly forward, knowing of the next step is to take this post out. The next step after that is to take the next one out. That these are the steps moving forward, but I don't know where they're leading me to. It's just following a path that you only see the next step forward is kind of a difficult thing to do, especially when you make content where people are wanting to know what's going on, because it's like, I'm blissfully following blindly at this point. So anyways, that's it for today. I've really got to get busy. I got to get all these posts out. I got to try to get some of the brush cleared up along the fence line over there. So then that way we can get everything ready for this weekend to move the rabbits over in that area. We're waiting on the ground to basically thaw out enough that we can use the truck to then move everybody over there, because that's an awful long distance to try to carry them, even though it's only probably 60 feet. That cages are pretty heavy. So yeah, wish me luck, because the ground is actively starting to freeze and I've got cold hands and I've got 4 or 5 rabbits to butcher today, some roosters to do, some fences to pull, because the next several weeks are going to be very, very cold and I'd rather do it now than wait till it's colder. So anyways, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.